I was awakened suddenly, and I'm not a fan of that. Mr. called me because one of our friends called him to say that my son was not at work at the time that he was supposed to be. And then my friend called me to let me know. So I had to hop up and get this boy. And listen, I had just had a conversation with him on, I think, Saturday about this job. So did my husband. And so to have this happen this morning, y'all, I was not pleased. Not to mention, I had recommended that he not work 3 consecutive days in a row because he's working for a moving company, and this is physical labor in the middle of the summer, okay? But you could lead a horse to water, you can't make it drink. So got up, got him there, because I'm not letting him take my car because it's just going to be sitting there. So dropped him off, came back, and I had to get myself together because we were up and out of the house. I don't like that. I do not like that. That's why I used to work second shift, because I want to wake up naturally. So anyway, the last time we talked, I told you guys I had gotten fired, and I told you about this 30-day devotional that I created. And I created this devotional before I left London, after the stuff happened with my family. I created it because, I've been working hard to let the Lord lead me and walk closer to Him and be with Him and trust Him. And the devotionals have been helpful, and I was looking, here's how it actually started. I did this one, a 21-day devotional through Rock City TV, Pastor Mike. And I was like, oh, this is great. And so I was looking for something similar to it and could not find it. And then I said, girl, why don't you create one yourself? You know what you're looking for. You know what you want. And so that's how the 42-day transformational devotional started. And, I'll be honest, I didn't do it every day. And I also slacked on my, I wasn't watching Rock City TV. And so when everything happened with the family, I was like, you know what, let me get back in and, tighten up my relationship. And so yesterday I was at home and I was doing administrative things and turned on Rock City TV and watched one of Pastor Mike's sermons. Y'all, it was titled, "It's a Lot Suddenly." And basically the sermon talks about how when God moves and starts to bless you, it happens suddenly, or at least that's how we choose to see it, or other people may see it as it's happening suddenly. But in reality, it's been in preparation all along. There has been growth and planning that's been happening behind the scenes that, you don't see. For example, a lot of you have just found my channel and are seeing me for the first time. I get a lot of compliments from you regarding my hair and my skin. It's been a journey, but you're seeing it, and it feels like it's happening suddenly. This my entrepreneur journey, and that and the way that things are happening, and some of the virality that I've gotten for a channel my size from some of my videos, because I was sharing experiences on a 6-week solo adventure, a 33-day world cruise. You're just seeing that, but you don't know what has happened behind the scenes, unless you go on a deep dive in my older videos and you see me crying and talking about, holding on and having hope. I openly talk about going to not only individual counseling, but couples counseling. You know, you see the video of Mr. and him sharing how my solo travel has affected him as a husband and his ability to protect me, you know, how it's helped our marriage. But you know, we've been doing counseling, we've been doing the work, you know, to be better communicators, to allow one another the space, you know. And so when things may look suddenly, there's been work and planning that's been going on behind the scenes. And so Pastor Mike in his sermon talked about, you know, some points like, what if what we're seeing as chaos is actually God using a key, and that key is to open a door, you know. And you know, there's an example or a lesson, a story in the Bible that Pastor Mike references from his sermon, and I'll put the link in the video. But basically, he talks about how God uses an earthquake to shake the jail, and you know, the prisoners are set free. But you know, typically in an earthquake, you know, sometimes roofs are collapsing and there's damage, but this was orchestrated in a way that didn't happen. It just shook the foundation and the doors were opened. And you know, at the end of the video, Pastor Mike talks about 3 types of doors. That, you know, there are manual doors that we have to do work, actually push to walk through. You know, there's a revolving door that he talks about how it had gotten thrown off a little bit, you know, because there were like too many people on one side, and so they had to go really slow. So those times where things aren't happening very fast and we feel like we are not making any progress and we feel stuck. You know, I've talked a lot about that in my videos, you know, months ago, last year, and that feeling of being stuck. And then he talks about automatic doors and how we don't have to do anything. They open automatically and we just walk through. And sometimes, you know, blessings are like each one of those in different phases. And it's, you know, for us to have faith and trust. Pastor Mike talked about how God loves us too much to bless the version of us that is destroying us. You know, we have to have some type of change. You know, we have to learn the lesson. So often we might ask to be removed from the situation. God, just take it away from us. But we haven't learned. You know, there was a sermon that he did that I watched months ago, and he talked about the inflection point. And that's a critical time where it's like, if you've learned the lesson, then you're gonna be catapulted in terms of your growth. But if you haven't, you're gonna stay in that phase until you learn the lesson. And when I was in London, I just thank God. I thank God for the growth that I had. I thank God for not taking me out of situations, for leaving me in them so that I could develop, you know, so that I could learn. I didn't start feeling okay and somewhat at peace until I surrendered control. And I said, I don't know what's going to happen, but I trust. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to, you know, do what I need to do. Pastor Mike had a sermon, Make Your Move. And it goes back to some of the points that he said yesterday. You know, what if God is waiting for us? What if God is waiting for us to surrender or us to step out on faith? You know, Pastor Mike, in the sermon, he says that God uses whatever key. You know, you might not be singing on the right key, but God will use any key to open that door for you. You know, so what if he's been waiting and waiting on you to make that move? You don't want to work for anybody. You have a business concept. You have a story that has to be told or needs to be told, but you're scared and you're not trusting. You know, something is talking to you and you're hearing a little voice. Somebody commented on a video and said that they want to tell their story, but they don't know how much to share. They start small. It's okay. You don't have to have it figured out. And some people might judge you. Some people might, you know, comment or whatever. But you know what? You're being seen. And so that means that the people who need to hear your story, who can benefit from this business idea that you have, it's going to reach them. But you have to make the move. And this is a lesson that we are trying so hard to impart on my son. Stop being, you know, reactive. Stop waiting on people to give you some information. You have to be proactive. You have to go out and follow up and ask for clarification. That's what being an adult is about. That's what, you know, taking charge and trying to take control. There is a balance that has to be had. You can't control everything, but you can't wait on everybody. You have to make that move. And so what if God is waiting on you to make that move, to get serious, to say, enough is enough. I don't like being in this space. I have the power to change the situation. You know, I can make a move, and maybe that one little move will begin a snowball effect that will give a bigger and a, you know, more sense of accomplishment, you know, boost your confidence, put you in rooms with people who you need to be in. But if you don't make the move, you're not going to do anything. You're going to be stuck. You're going to be right there. And time waits for no one. So it was wonderful seeing that sermon yesterday, hearing it, you know, and then the stuff happened this morning with my son, and my friend called me after I dropped my son off, and we were just talking about him being my son, and he's like, yeah, you're gonna have to give him some tough love. And I said, you know, I am. When I got back from London, get up, get this room cleaned. If you can't keep your room clean, dude, you can leave. You're 18. And so we have to, you know, as human beings, whether it's a child, another adult in our lives, we have to stop enabling people. You know, we have to stop making it so that their situations are, you know, comfortable, but then wanting them to do something different. You know, we have a part to play in that as well. And it's difficult, especially as a parent, because you want the best for your child. You want to see them succeed. But then there's this fine line where, you know, what happens if I'm not here? You know, you want them to be able to leave the nest. And it's so funny that I say that, because day before yesterday, sitting out on the front porch, watching the birds feed the nestlings. So today I kept seeing that they were flying to the nest that was empty. So I was like, you know what? I haven't done a nest check in a minute. So I got my ladder. I got on it. Nothing in the nest that they used for the first brood of birds. So then I eased on over to the second nest. So I was like, let me check this out. Kind of got the camera. Y'all, the second brood of birds have fledged, and they are gone. It had to have happened yesterday. The day before, when I was sitting out there, I saw one of the birds really flapping its wings, and I thought, oh, but they still looked really young. So I wasn't here when they were born. But here these birds have left the nest. And that's what we want our children to do. We want to raise self-sufficient children that can leave the nest. That's why we get the term empty nesters. You know, that's a transition, learning how to parent a young adult and learning how to parent your children, because each child you can't parent the same. And that was a wake-up call for me when Evan was like 7th grade. I said, wait a minute, I can't parent him like I did Bree. You know, he's different. He requires different, you know, he has different needs. But I want him to lead this nest, y'all. And I want to help give him some independence. And also, you know, I want to be there for him, but I don't want to handicap him and make him so that he doesn't know what to do or is still dependent on people. And so I'm gonna have to let go. I'm gonna have to do some tough love. And it's like, it's hard. It's a process, but it's something that has to be done. So I'm grateful that I have this devotion. I want to share it with you. I want you to, to do it along with me. And so today is day 1. And the title of today's devotion is The First Step is Releasing Your Grip. I'm going to put the link. You know where to get it. It's free. I'm not about to spam you or anything like that, so trust. But I'm going to speak this declaration because I want to say it out loud, and I want you to say it out loud, and I want you to try to keep it at the forefront of your mind. So today's declaration is, I release what was. I open my hands to what is coming. God is doing a new thing in me, and I have the eyes to see it. So this is, the declaration is a little bit different from the previous devotional, but I want you to say that, and I want you to feel it. I release what was. I open my hands to what is coming. God is doing a new thing in me, and I have eyes to see it. In Pastor Mike's sermon yesterday, he has tasked us with, before we open our phones or do any, or, for other things, that we read this scripture, Amos 9, verse 13. Yes, indeed, it won't be long now, God's decree. Things are going to happen so fast your head will swim. One thing fast on the heels of the other. You won't be able to keep up. Everything will be happening at once, and everywhere you look, blessings. Blessings like wine pouring off the mountains and hills. I can testify that that is true. That, when the blessings start, they just start coming. But there's been a lot of work behind the scenes, and there's been a lot of preparation, and there's been action needed by me and times where I've had to wait. So I encourage you to let go and to let God, to trust in His promises, and know that what He has planned for you, sometimes you have to let some things go. You have to release that grip so that you can move forward. I thank you so much for watching. I'm gonna go about the rest of my day and get some things done, and I'm gonna talk to you guys soon. Take care.